Murdoch University is the provider of resources and transmission facilities for the 6 Points podcast. The views expressed on the show are those of the individual and not necessarily those of Murdoch University or Radio Murdoch. All views expressed are those of the individual unless otherwise stated.
There's a spillage across half-back. Port Adelaide picked the ball up. Matt White now running down the wing of Etihad Stadium. He takes a bounce. Takes a second bounce. Richmond might catch him here. He's burnt off his opponent. Matt White takes a third bounce. Runs inside the 50 from 49 metres out. He unloads. Open goal square. Goal!
Ebert pumps it into the forward 50. Wingard. Oh, Wingard! Oh, baby, there's your mark of the year. Get around him, boys. Oh, he's played on. Oh, he's kicked it anyway. Wingard, what a star.
Good Tuesday, footy fans. Welcome to the 6 Points for another week. My name is Robert Beaver, and across the desk, a man who says that Virgin destroyed his dream team this week, my co-host Shaan Subra.
Mate, they did. It was a devastating week for me. It's mixed emotions, actually, because I'm a happy crow on one side, but a dream team that's been destroyed by Virgin Mobile on the other side. So very mixed emotions, but Rob, what a week. What a round. So excited.
It was a great round, wasn't it? I mean, we had some absolute crackers. I actually wrote a blog article on the My 6 Points blog about how competitive the first round was. This year, we had 5 games decided by 2 goals or less. Last year's round 1, I think 7 of the 8 games blew out to more than 5 goals. So,
nothing.
A really big change, and what a great round it was. But first, how was your trip down south? How was your little holiday, Shaan?
Yeah, look, it was a great one. It was a big one. As I said, a couple of cartons snuck in with a few games. As I said, off air to Rob. Bit of an off air chat me and Rob had before the game. But it was great to just watch some footy, just relax, get down south. Nice weather before the winter. Dries everything or wets everything up, and there's no more sun.
Exactly. Look forward to Shaan's report on the Crows game, because I'm told that's where majority of the couch coma sort of came in there. So look forward to that one, punters. All right. Before we get into the week in AFL, a little bit of shameless promotion to be done. So if you want to be involved in the show, there are so many ways you can do it, Shaan. So many ways. 1, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/the 6 points. That's with a number. 2, tweet us on the Twitter machine at 6 Points Podcast. That is with a number as well. And 3, email us at 6pointspodcast@gmail.com. That is with 6 spelled S-I-X, because, and we've said this every week on the show, and I still haven't emailed these people, Shaan, but somebody's registered the domain
Brianna,
with the number.
You should really get on that.
Brianna, our producer, I think we're just going to offload that onto you. So that's your job for the week, Brianna. And of course, if you like the show, hit us up on iTunes. You can leave a review, download the show there. Again, just search for 6 Points with a number. Everything will come up from there, and it'll be great to know that people are listening to the show as well. Right, so on today's show, as always, we will go through all of the AFL's round 1 action, looking into next week's round 2 as well. We will have our hero and villain of the week, as well as our sure thing, our predictions for round 2. But as always, we start with our 3 feature games, and here to take us through the first, my main man, my co-host, Shaan. Let's not waste any time.
Yeah, massive game. This one, big for both these teams. Pretty disappointing clubs for the last couple of years, both for different reasons. First of all, Crows finishing outside the 8 for a few years now, and North just not being able to find form during the finals. When you are 2 contenders in these positions, the first game is always crucial. You just would love to get off to that great start, just be 4 points ahead early. Sunday marked 25 years since the Crows' first game in the AFL. Now, 25 years ago, they belted Hawthorn by 86 points in their first induction game into the AFL. So a lot's changed in 25 years, you'd say, with GWS and Gold Coast taking a while to get started. Adelaide struck first early with goals to Tex and Eddie Betts. Big presence from Danger all around the ground, and also Tex in the forward 50. It was a very up and down quarter with goals coming in quick bursts. Adelaide topped off the quarter, finishing 4 goals up. Just an amazing start to the Adelaide Footy Club. The second was where Adelaide really unleashed. They kicked the first 6 goals of the quarter to North kicking none, making it Adelaide with the last 10 goals for the game. Not a stat you want for any team, Rob. Eddie Betts, Taylor Walker, Dangerfield, Rory Salone with the big 4, capitalising on every opportunity and continuously pushing out that margin. North really were stunned in the quarter. The Crows were just unstoppable. Dangerfield, great play in this quarter, had the opportunity from the line to snap a miracle goal, and 9 out of 10 players probably would have had a punt. And I guess if your name's Dangerfield, you would have probably had a punt as well. But Danger sensibly pops it over the top to Eddie Betts in the square and made a sure thing of the goal. Sensible yet brilliant play from Dangerfield. An absolutely obliterated North, only managed 1 goal in the quarter to go down the half 10 goals down. Now, this quarter was interesting, the third. Adelaide came out a bit tired and they tried to continue their domination, but yeah, they looked a bit flat. North made a couple of changes during the break and things started to work. Goldstein, it was one in the centre really. Goldstein was winning every tap. Sauce Jacobs was against him first. Then he got ditched and they tried Josh Jenkins in there. Still didn't work. Goldstein was just all over it, tapping straight to North players and just sort of moving into their forward 50. So it was worrying signs for the Crows because that margin was getting closer. It was down to about 28 and North had all the momentum and it looked like it was going to be a totally different story from the first half. But after a couple of settler goals, Crows were back where they left off, 7 goals up at the final break. Last quarter, Danger, another amazing goal and an incredible display of effort to be 7 goals up and still be running this hard is a real tick for him. He got the ball off the centre clearance, ran it to the half forward, kicked it into Tex. Tex, the mark was spoiled and the ball Shaan sort of scrummed towards North's forward 50. Paddy, second effort. That's all we love to see in AFL. Picked the ball back up, ran in, slotted through, an amazing goal on the left. Great play by Danger. Already a big contender for goal of the year. And as BT would say, it was party time after that for Adelaide, with Adelaide pumping out another 6 goals in the final term and holding North to just 5 points to win comfortably by 77 in front of 46,000 at Adelaide Oval. Final score, Adelaide 21-14, 140 to North Melbourne's 9-9-63. Rob, just a great way to start the season and a great Easter Sunday for me, just covered in eggs. And just loving what was happening on the television.
It was probably one of the more surprising games. I mean, North obviously making a prelim last year, you would have expected them to come out maybe a little bit more...
Oh, just to be in the contest at least, really.
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, it sounds really harsh for us to say that, but they were never really in that contest. Like you said, they had that good sort of 10-minute patch at the start of the third. I'm assuming Coach Scott gave them a pretty big rev up
big dressing down
at halftime, as you'd imagine. But after that, Adelaide just got back on top, and there was no hope for North after that. They didn't seem to have any type of leadership. And I watched a lot of media coverage yesterday, and radio shows and websites and all those types of things. And there's a few points that have come up about North, and it's that they don't have sort of that definite A grade sort of superstar. They have a lot of B to B plus players. And I think we saw that even last year. On their best, those B plus players can be elite. And when they are, that North is one of the most unstoppable teams, but they don't have that one very solid person like a Gary Ablett, who didn't have his best game in the weekend, but we'll get to that a bit later. Just someone that they can turn to and give the ball to, and they'll take it on their shoulders, like a Dangerfield, like a Tex Walker did in this game.
Without a doubt.
And let's face it, Tex and Danger absolutely tore this team to shreds. I think 47 touches and 8 goals between them, which is just something phenomenal, unbelievable for your 2 key players, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that North can take out of this game was that they would just really look like they were unprepared. I mean, they've obviously got, as Rob was saying, that kind of B grade, but you've still got some talent there. There is still players who, they played finals last year. You can't just come off a preseason and play like that. The thing that was killing North is whenever Adelaide had the ball and they had a little bit of open space, you just assumed that there was going to be a goal at the end of it, and it happened every time. There was just popped over one North player to the next, and then either Eddie Betts or Tex in the square kick the goal. So a lot of talking points for North, but I mean they'll obviously have a look at it and see went wrong. But what does this mean for North for the season? Can we judge by this game, or is this too early to say anything?
I'm not the biggest fan of Brad Scott or any of the Scott brothers for that matter as coaches.
Bad weekend for those two.
Bad weekend for those two as well. But what he said in the post-match press conference was correct, and it is round 1. And this is also something in the blog article that I wrote this week, that perhaps the most positive thing to come out of this week, and there's a lot of positives for a lot of teams, a lot of these lower ranked teams, Melbourne obviously picking up a W, the Bulldogs haven't had the most successful sort of 6 months, they picked up a W as well. But perhaps the most positive thing for a lot of teams is that it's only round one.
Oh, definitely.
Essendon gave up a huge lead.
Oh, Essendon. Goodness me.
And I know you'll definitely touch on them later on the show.
We'll be touching on them, Rob.
But, there's positives. It's only round one. You have 22 more weeks to get it together before you even start looking at finals. So, but in terms of what North has to do, there's already been speculation of massive sort of changes to the personnel that are in the team. There's already talk about leadership and all that type of leadership and what those leaders didn't bring on that game, which I think is pretty obvious. 9 goals in 4 quarters is not, for the conditions, that's just not acceptable. Exactly. So look, North's got some changes, they know that, and I'm sure Brad Scott will take that into account in the week, and they'll sort of work through that, and hopefully they'll come out next week, this coming week, with a better showing. I mean, you don't need to win necessarily, but you at least need to show some spirit.
Yeah, definitely. I want to ask you about Eddie Betts. When he came to Adelaide, it was a questionable trade. I know that I talked to you about it, and I said it's probably not Adelaide's wisest choice at the time when it happened, with Port Adelaide sort of getting obviously their rival, Port Adelaide getting the younger, more talented players, whereas Adelaide targeting someone who at the time sort of was over. It was kind of, at the end of his career. But he's lighting it up. He's lighting up Adelaide Oval. He's kicking goals. He's playing, I think, the best he's ever played. 51 goals last year, which was his highest ever goal tally. Carlton regretting losing Eddie Betts. He only wanted 500,000, and Carlton didn't want a bar of it.
I think there's. Do they regret it? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, someone that goes away, especially as a small forward, as a crumbing sort of forward, to kick 51 goals is a massive, massive effort. It just doesn't happen. I mean, the last time I can think of anyone that sort of mid to small size forward kicking that much would be Brad Johnson. I think he kicked 70 in 2008, and that's as a small forward. So these types of numbers just don't happen. As for the money that Betts wanted, I mean, we don't know the exact financial strain that Carlton was in, and obviously Mick had just come in. He obviously wanted to clean house a little bit. But it certainly looks like a bit of egg on Carlton's face now, because Carlton have absolutely no forward line, and Eddie Betts is just dominating. So do they regret it? Probably.
I think he was the one. I mean, you look at Garlett and Mitch Robertson and other people who left. They left for reasons that were outside of the club, some off-field stuff. Eddie Betts really had no reason to leave. He wanted to stay. He was just wanting that. It just contractually it just didn't work out. But yeah, it's a bit of a regret. Dangerfield now, obviously a spectacular effort on the field. What does this mean for Danger? It's kind of the only thing that would happen with the Crows that could make Dangerfield stay. Danger has said in some interviews in the past that he doesn't care about the money. He just wants success for the club. And if Crows can deliver that success this year, does he stay?
It's a really good question. I mean, based on yesterday's performance, again, assuming North is the same calibre of team that they were last year, if Adelaide can do that to that team, then there's no limit to how high Adelaide's ceiling is this year. And I know you're smiling like a giddy schoolgirl in the corner, but honestly, I think you have to look at it. If Adelaide routinely, if they have 2 or 3 more performances like this during the against really solid sort of top 8 teams, Danger will have a lot to think about this offseason. I mean, it'll be a really, really big thing. Anything else you want to touch on for this game, Shaan?
Yeah, it's just with Adelaide, when they're at their best, which was on Sunday, they are at their best. But when they're at their worst, they are very, very bad. And hopefully they can stay up. Just a couple of last stats before we finish off this game. Walker with 6 goals, Betts with 4 goals, Jenkins with 3 goals, Salone with 2, and Danger with 2. For North Melbourne, Higgins with 4. He was pretty good. Thomas with 2. Best on ground for me, Walker and Danger from Adelaide. And for North, I thought Cunnington for me was the best on ground. He really lifted up the team, and he was really the only one that was playing.
Hero of the Week. Yes, it is now time for our Hero of the Week. And Shaan, something that has never happened in the history of Hero of the Week on this show. me and you both have the same hero for this week. Now,
We have.
he is an Adelaide Crow player, so I will let you gush over him first.
I'll say,
and then
we've had the same villain many times. We've been very angry at the same time. We've never been happy at the same time.
All right, take us through your hero for this week.
My hero of the week couldn't go past him, and he is the hero for a lot of Adelaideans this week. The big Tex Walker. What an amazing day out for the new captain. Just a perfect start. Let's go through some of his stats. 6 goals. 15 marks, 21 disposals, 7 inside 50s, 14 score involvements, and 2 goal assists, which could have very easily been another 2 goals for the big Tex. Not only that, he came on the field with such a present and just dominated. Just a quick stat to round up my hero and to really highlight the day for you. Tex finished with 3 contested marks out of his 15 marks, and North Melbourne as a team finished with 9 contested marks. So that just really highlights the kind of day that it was for North Melbourne and the kind of day that it was for Adelaide. Great job by the big Texan, and that is why you are my hero of the week.
Absolutely, and I was looking through all of the stats, and there are a few other people you could have picked, but I think Danger, for what he did... not Danger, sorry, Tex. Danger had a good game as well. But for what Tex did, it was amazing. Like, he kicked 6 goals, 5. He could have had 10 goals.
He could have, yeah.
And it's every second time he touched the ball, he could have kicked a goal. And that is something absolutely remarkable. And we talked about this a few weeks ago on the show, but you said when he was appointed captain, it might have spelt the end for Danger, for Dangerfield being there. I think...
What are you thinking?
Basically the opposite now. Like, if they can keep spitting out performances, and if Tex can lead this team the way that he has been, why wouldn't you stay?
Yeah,
I mean, obviously,
exactly.
If money's one thing, and obviously he's come out in the past and said, look, money's not the number one priority. If that's true, and Adelaide can keep this up, there's no reason why he would leave that club, especially when you've got a relatively young cast coming through. I mean, Tex Walker, Rory Sloane, there's a lot of people, and Danger's obviously not that old himself either. So, look, honestly, Tex, you killed it. There's no doubt. Also racked up 146 Dream Team points.
146, bang. And he's in mine.
He's in your team, yeah. We'll talk about that a bit later. But, top effort, Tex.
Yeah, so good. There was one player I just want to quickly talk about, Rob. Tex, I mean, at this point, we're about 60 points up or something like that. So really, most teams would not take the foot off the pedal, but just kind of settle down and kind of, just work on defensive, just sort of work on just finishing out the game with no injuries. Big Tex Walker kicked it into the forward 50. I can't remember who marked it, but whoever it was, he was kicking. The kick would have been from outside 50. Not the best kick. So Tex ran around, back into the square, ran out, presented himself. North Melbourne was caught off guard as they were the whole day, and Tex marked it in front of goal and then got the goal for himself. Great work. It's that those second efforts is one thing that we really, really want to see with football.
Absolutely.
Now, we move on and analyse our second game from the weekend, which was the Bulldogs and the Eagles on Saturday night. Rob, I know you are very close to this one, very excited about this one, and didn't like the fact that all the experts out in the West had the Eagles tipped. So
they did. I read the West Australian newspaper, I think, on Thursday.
Everyone had Eagles.
And I think all bar 3. There's about 20 of them. All bar 3 had the Eagles. And West Australian journalists, so I don't necessarily expect anything different. But I was a little bit upset about that.
He was upset. All right, take us through this one, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely, Shaan. Now, very, very excited about this. The post we put on the Facebook page a little bit before the show started sort of says it all. For the first time, I'm excited about reviewing and analysing a Bulldogs game. It's been a long time between drinks, but here we go. So Saturday night, it was a pretty lackluster crowd. I think it was only about 25,000 at Etihad Stadium, but the noise that they made, fantastic. Just
what do you want to say?
Honestly, it's great to have footy back. Now, the Bulldogs started pretty well. They had lots of good pressure in their forward half. They had 2 smothers in the first 2 minutes and looked like they were going to score first for a few minutes, but Johannesson's run off halfback couldn't yield a mark inside 50 for the Bulldogs, and that was probably one of the problems they had for the majority of the game. Rebound footy ended up costing the Dogs, as after 5 minutes, the Eagles had slammed on 2 quick majors on the back of a wave of players just spreading from the contest off half-back and catching the Bulldogs, who were pushing numbers up in an attempt to pressure the ball. We were just caught off guard. It was really upsetting for me. The Eagles looked to have momentum, but that soon changed with about 10 minutes to go as Mitch Brown went down after a marking contest holding his left knee. This is obviously devastating for the Eagles. He had to be helped off the ground by a stretcher.
That's not what you want to see.
Just a bizarre injury. There was no contact. It was just like his knee buckled under his own weight. And we know that Mitch Brown has had injury concerns in the past. So hopefully, obviously we know the extent of that injury now, but hopefully he can rehab and he can come back bigger and better. But obviously, look, not what the Eagles needed. Glass retired last year. Waters retired this year. McKenzie's already gone down. Schofield wasn't playing. There's a lot. That's their entire backline just gone. And also, the other storyline with this one was that Tom Lamb, the sub the first game, had to come on in the first quarter. Tom Lamb's like a roaming half-forward flanker, so they just didn't have anything to put back down there. Blessing in disguise for the Bulldogs, though. The injury gave both teams about 5 minutes to reassess midway through the quarter, and I thought the Eagles had a lot of momentum up until this point, and the chance to regroup definitely favoured the Dogs more than it did the Eagles. Immediately following the restart of play, a free kick and a 50-metre penalty to Liam Picken resulted in the Bulldogs' first goal of the term. This is only seconds after Mitch Brown went down and the play restarted. On the next play, Stringer got a free kick inside 50 for a high tackle, kicks the goal, cutting the margin to 1 point. So 2 goals in 2 minutes, and it looked like the momentum had swung. Now, a really good example of the Bulldogs' pressure in the first quarter was with about 6 minutes to go. Mark Lacroix had marked on the wing, played on, obviously looking to get that sort of running overlap going to try and punish the Bulldogs on the rebound. He had no options. And that was just one of the most happiest things I could have seen as a Bulldogs supporter. They got the ball on the wing, and the ball went all the way back to the defensive goal square to go to Shannon Hearn before it could move forward again. Bulldogs had great man-on-man defense. They had their hard-running, high-pressure game, and it appeared to be paying off. Now, the Bulldogs made it 3 goals in a row when Mitch Honeychurch got a free inside 50 in goal. Interesting to note at this point, all the Bulldogs goals were from frees inside the forward 50, and all the Eagles goals were from transition footy. So it looked like both teams had the way that they were going to go about it, and it just looked like whoever came out on top was probably going to, take that away, and whoever executed their game plan better. So the Eagles and Dogs both kicked 1 more goal for the term. Dalhouse got the last of the quarter, and that saw the Dogs go up by 5 points into the quarter-time break. Onto the second quarter, the Eagles got the jump on the Dogs early, with the Bulldogs' pressure, especially around the 50 to midfield area, seeming to have dropped off a touch. And the Eagles looked more dangerous with run-off halfback. That resulted in the first 4 goals of the term. And I was thinking, oh no, here we go again. The Bulldogs are just going to give this one away. One of the Bulldogs' biggest problems was new Eagles captain Shannon Hearn getting the ball off rush behinds. Bulldogs kicked, I think, 2 or 3 rush behinds in the first 10 minutes. Hearn would obviously get the kick out, and he is so punishing with the ball. He would just kick it short, that 15-20 metre kick, run and get the handball, run another 15 metres, he kick it. There's 100 metres away from goal before the Bulldogs have even thought about looking at the ball. He really, really damaged us. It looked like all Eagles until Easton Wood intercepted a kick inside the Bulldogs attacking 50, and that resulted in the first goal for the term for the Bulldogs. A kick that a year ago would not have been a goal, and that just showed me as a Bulldog supporter that they have developed and they've improved. The intensity stepped up a notch. The Bulldogs looked to have found their high-pressure game again midway through the quarter. Just sensational pressure. The crowd, only 25,000. They were really getting into it. Dale Morris, I think, for me, had 2 goal-saving tackles. Players these days taught to get their arms up, get that handball away, keep the play going. Dale Morris, in 2 tackles around the forward 50 area for the Eagles, pinned the ball to the West Coast Eagles opponent. Both resulted in ball-ups, and that stopped the handball overlap. It was really, really pivotal. So well done to Dale Morris.
Great effort.
Look, at this point, it was nearly back to a 50-50 game after Jake Stringer had a marvellous snap from 40 metres out. But the Bulldogs appeared to have to work harder for their goals. There was lots of grinding, lots of hard running, as opposed to the Eagles, who were just having 15 seconds of freedom, and they were making use of it and really damaging us off half-back. An example of this hard work, though, that the Bulldogs had to put in, Mitch Honeychurch burnt off Matt Priddis from a stoppage in the back half, delivered to Stringer on the wing. Stringer had no options up ahead. It was a bit like Mark Lacroix in the first quarter, so he had to hold up the play. This was the easiest passage of play in the game to that point for the Bulldogs, and they couldn't get it past the midfield. So that's how hard the Bulldogs were having to work. Jack Redpath slotted the next goal, again, from a free inside 50 for the Bulldogs. And it was at this point that Bulldogs ruckman Will Minson looked to be tiring with every stoppage. Hands on knees, he would just hold on to the ball. He refused to give it back to the umpire for the ball up. He'd just hold on to it, try and get every bit of air into his lungs that he could. But all in all, second quarter resembled the first. The Eagles getting the jump, but the Bulldogs fighting back hard to take a slim lead into the break. A little bit of a stat for you, Shaan.
Here we go.
We love our stats. So the most tackles inside attacking 50 for a game is 34. That's the AFL record.
Yeah.
To halftime in this one, the Bulldogs had 21.
Wow. Your boys.
My boys. Who would have thought my boys?
Forward pressure.
Look, they didn't end up getting the record, but that says something about the pressure that they were applying. And I know that these teams probably aren't going to sort of be vying for the finals. But if you're getting this from a bottom, well, a bottom 10, I guess, not bottom 8, but a bottom 10 team game, that's fantastic. Like, the league's in good shape. Start of the third, Nick Natanui, what a man, in my dream team, absolutely killed us. This is bittersweet because he was winning me my dream team round and he was just chopping the Bulldogs apart. He was dominating Minson at the hitouts. His closing speed on Matt Boyd inside 50 resulted in a Kennedy goal. Minson, as I mentioned before, looked tired. He couldn't keep up. Natanui was winning everything against Minson for the first 5 minutes, resulting in yet another Eagles run. But when Lysette came into the ruck to give Natanui a smell, Minson dominated, and it was just really weird dynamic of Minson was staying there. Whenever Nick Nat couldn't make the contest, the Bulldogs would win it. It was really quite bizarre. But all in all, look, the third quarter played out much the way that the first two had. It was just the Eagles getting a run, the Bulldogs fighting back. The Eagles took a small lead into the fourth quarter now. At three-quarter time, the Bulldogs pulled the pin on their substitute. Jared Grant came on. Of course, Tom Lamb being used in the first quarter. So you'd think the Bulldogs would have more run, but they also play a high-pressure game. So we'll see who had the legs to round out this one. And oh my, could the Bulldogs have kicked straight? They could have won this by 15 goals. It was just shocking. We had, I think, 3 posters for the game. Jared Grant had one running out of the centre off a Will Minson thump. He just hit it 20 metres in the right direction, hit the post. We intercepted the kick-in. Jake Stringer hit the post again. As a Bulldog supporter, I was on the edge of my couch. I could not believe this one. But all in all, the Eagles held in there really well for the first 15 minutes of this quarter when the Bulldogs looked like they were going to break it open. With about a minute 17 to go, West Coast Eagles down by 11. They roll the dice off half back, get it all the way to the forward line. Josh Kennedy marks the ball inside 50. Kicks a point, and at that point, the game was over. Bulldogs obviously get the kick out, hold on for a 10-point win. Final score on this one, 14-13, 97, the Dogs, and the Eagles, 14-3, 87. Shaan, you watched this game.
He's a happy man.
I'm such a happy man. I know that review went for a little bit longer, but I had to get this in because we might not win a lot of games this year. But talk me through your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, great effort by the Dogs. There was obviously a lot of talk with the trade period about losing so many players and the thought that, how are we going to overcome this? I think it's a good thing if players don't want to be there and they leave. It's a new chapter for the club. It brings in new talent, and you're never going to know. If a really good player's been playing there for 10 years but moved somewhere else, it's fresh talent. Although he might have been really good, you're getting in all these fresh legs and all these fresh faces, and it just sort of can give a new leaf for the club. So I think it's great. We've seen it happen before. Obviously Melbourne, another great example on the weekend. To come out and beat Gold Coast how they did with that crowd. Similar situation. The Bulldogs, probably the Bulldogs, not as bad as Melbourne, but still crowd-wise, they came both games, and I mean the crowd's happy. Obviously, Rob's happy, so great effort by the Bulldogs.
Everyone's happy in the world, Shaan. The world is right again. So 3 talking points from this one. I thought Jeremy McGovern, West Coast Eagle, just a Hercules-like effort. He went back into the back line after Brown's injury. He received the ball off opposition disposals a whopping 14 times for the game to go with 26 disposals and 12 marks. The next best at sort of intercepting Bulldog disposals was Brad Shepherd, who had 7 for the Eagles. Now, how do West Coast reinvent their back line with Brown going down?
Oh, I don't know what they're going to do. They've obviously got a good midfield. They've worked in the midfield, which was a bit undermanned last year, but that's kind of up and running now. And now they've got this big issue in the back line. I don't know what the answer is, really.
I think, obviously, Will Schofield, they hope at least at 195 centimetres will be coming back this coming week. But I think it just means that players like Elliot Yeo, who are sort of that midfield half-back type, he's going to have to play permanent defence this year.
I didn't mind Yeo's game.
I didn't mind Yeo's game as well. 62 Dream Team points, so definitely helped out my back line. But he's going to have to become a key defender, which is not what he's going to do. But the biggest concern for the Eagles in their back line is that if Tom Boyd and Jack Redpath from the Western Bulldogs, a combined AFL experience of about 15 games, if they tore that apart, imagine what Mitch Clark and Tom Hawkins are going to do. So look, the Eagles have some problems, but I think it would be remiss if we didn't mention Jeremy McGovern. He was sensational. There wasn't a lot of times where he wasn't third man up over Tom Boyd as well. So Jeremy McGovern, fantastic effort. Hopefully you can get a little bit of help in the back line there for the Eagles.
I'll ask you one question because I know you don't answer this one. Is Jake Stringer the next Stevie J?
Yes.
Strong through the hips, breaks tackles, misses easy goals, makes the hard ones. He can be quiet for a whole game, then break it open with 3 touches. Rob, is he the next Stevie J?
He's got a bit of Stevie J about him, there's no doubt. There were plays where he missed 3 goals that he should have made. He hooked all of them to the right, hit the post on one, but these are 20, 30 metres out, 45-degree angle shots that AFL players should be making. And then off 2 steps, he'll manage to snap a goal from 40 metres with 2 players around him. So he's the type of player that just drives me insane. But when he's on, he is on, really strong through the hips. There are times where Stevie J is in a pack and he just doesn't get tackled, and the same thing happens to Stringer. He just manages to shrug tackles that you think, how on earth is he doing that?
How did that happen,
Look, he's probably 5 years away from being as consistent as Stevie J was in his prime, but absolutely, I think he's got the talent.
So you're telling me Sam Mitchell needs to watch his back from 2 people now?
No, Jake String is fair. Jake String is fair. But no, he's got talent, and hopefully he can actually take that forward and, I guess, build on that and hopefully become what the Bulldogs need him to be to take the next step.
Villain of the Week.
Villain of the Week. All right, we've gone through 2 games from the weekend. We've done our Hero of the Week. Now it is time for us to turn the table. Shaan, Villain of the Week. Who is someone in the AFL family who let you down this week?
I was listening to my Villains of the Week from recent times. I realised that my villains go for a lot shorter than my heroes. My villains, I'm really angry and I just sort of spit out
for a bit of a rant.
Spit out everything in 20 seconds and it's all over. Now, my Villain of the Week this week is the Essendon Football Club. Obviously, massive week last week for them. They've been the most talked about team for all the wrong reasons over the past 2 seasons. It was all cleared up now, and all they need to do was just come out, get a good win under their belt, or at least have play with a bit of good effort and to really set the club back in the right direction. Now, I know it's only round 1, but come on, guys. How can you hold Sydney to 3 goals in 3 quarters and then give up 40 points at the end? Absolute rubbish effort, and it needs to be addressed. They had it won, Rob. They just needed to defend for another half an hour, and then they were fine.
They did everything except win that game, didn't they? It was.
And with everything that's going on, everything over there, I think they played better when the doping scandal was over their head. At least they were winning games when it was happening.
I think they definitely had their backs against the wall during that entire scandal, but I think this one's a little bit harsh from you, if I'm being honest, Shaan. I read this. I read this when you sent it to me, and I thought, I'll put it in there because we can have a bit of a chat about it. But you got to admit, yes, they should have won the game, but these players, they haven't had 90% of that list wouldn't have played a lot because of obviously the scandal and the way that they were obviously prevented from playing and things like that. So should they have won it? Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that lack of preparation excuses, a 40-point fight back in the final quarter. But then again, maybe Sydney just got it together as well. I do agree with you for particular points about it, but I think possibly a little bit harsh.
Rob. They just need to come together. Job needed to get them together and say, we need to win this, boys. We can't go home with a loss. We need to get up. We need to get the club back on track. Didn't do it. And it was so close. I mean, if they'd have been flat or been okay the whole game and had a loss by, a couple of goals, fine. That's fine. But to be up by that much and to lose it that badly, it's just a sensational loss for the club. No, that is why they are my villain of the week.
And look, that's a fair enough call as well, Shaan. Now, my villain of the week for round 1, I've gone off-field, but on-field. I'll explain to you what I mean.
Okay, Rob.
Is fire. My villain of the week is fire. Now,
interesting.
On Sunday at Domain Stadium here in Perth, there was a fire at the stadium at around 1 p.m. Western Standard Time. So around 4 hours before bounce down. Fire services got that under control. The game was not affected. Saturday night at the Gabba, a small fire broke out on one of the support pillars near a set of lights at the top tier of the venue.
Wow.
The area was immediately evacuated. And on Sunday at Adelaide Oval, a fire alarm...
Not Adelaide Oval.
At Adelaide Oval,
no.
Your favourite place. A fire alarm delayed fans entering the ground for the Adelaide v North Melbourne clash. Now, I know it's only round 1. I know no one was hurt. But fire. Seriously. I think we could have gone back 20 years and we never would have found this many examples. So get it together. let's just stop the fires. Let's just let everyone have a great experience at the footy. No lining up, no kitchen fires before the game, no lights getting burnt and people having to evacuate when the Lions are making a comeback against Collingwood. That's why Fire is my villain
Now,
of the week,
look, Rob, on a personal, I think that's a bit harsh on Fire. I mean, he's just trying to live his life, and you've just absolutely struck him fair down.
So I should have as well. All right, 2 games, hero and villain of the week are down. One more game to go. That is the Fremantle versus Port Adelaide game on Sunday afternoon. Shaan, this is yours. I don't think you're as under the weather quite as much as you were for the Adelaide game. So let's see how this one goes.
Yeah, well, 2 teams who have had recent success and some very good and close games in the recent times. I was really wanting to get a good sort of preview of what the AFL season is going to deliver. Quite a boring game, I thought, which is usually the case when 2 really good sides go head-to-head. We've seen some grand finals which haven't been the most entertaining because they're just 2 sides that are really, really good and nothing happens because they're just both really good. Low scoring, long periods of time with no goals, just overall not the most entertaining game. Port scored the first 2 and it looked like Fremantle took a while to get settled. Port got comfortable and left their defence pretty open, to which Ballantyne and Fife capitalised on that. Fife, picking up where he left off last season, such a talent, pretty even quarter. Finished with a big goal outside 50 to Walters, with Fremantle going in 4 points down to the break. On to the second, Fremantle just looked a bit more together, I thought. Team goals, putting on amazing pressure. Port was still in the game and they were still kicking goals, but it was coming from more lucky ones like off the boundary, free kicks, sort of goals right in front, right from the square, rather than sort of earning them from good passages of play. Ryder, I thought, was fitting in well. Bit of talk about him. He had the head ruckman job at the new club with the absence of Matt Lobey, which I'm going to talk about later. Hayden,
Get your rage on, Shaan. Get your rage on.
Yeah, sit down, Lobey. Hayden Ballantyne will just take on anyone. His bumps were unreal for such a small-bodied player. Great effort. He was taking out ruckman and putting him down, and he just didn't care.
There's so many parts of me that hate Hayden Ballantyne, but if he was to put on a red, white, and blue jumper, I would love him and I would follow him into battle. And I think that's the sentiment around him for most of the league as well.
Oh, without a doubt. John Butcher, let's talk about him for a second. He should not have been in this Port Adelaide side. In my opinion, he shouldn't even be at the club. When you're
he
a
kicked the
premiership,
first goal, didn't he?
Rob, let me finish. When you're a premiership favourite by many and carrying the stellar midfield that they are, you cannot afford to have a player with such an erratic record. Sort it out, Ken. Otherwise, listen to this, Ken Ickley, my premiership predictions will have to change if it's not sorted out. Yes, I think he kicked the most goals, but he's so up and down. He's like 30% from set shots, and he's in a side that's tipped to win the premiership. There's so many good players out there. Put someone else in. Like, you got Jay Schultz, capitalise on him more than John Butcher. John Butcher was the go-to player for the whole team, and it shouldn't have been. I'm not saying it's why Port lost, but it's probably a big reason. Sort it out, Ken. That's all I'm saying. I'll leave it at that. Let's move on to the third quarter. Ryder, forward, desperation early in the third. After being denied a clear free kick, he just got belted by a free player. No free kick there. Anyway, he played on Neath. He ended up getting the goal in the end. Fremantle looked like they had a different ball to Port Adelaide because their kicking efficiency in the third was atrocious. Port was actually kicking goals and Fremantle was kicking it to the crowd.
I suppose that was Tom Butcher's fault as well, though, wasn't it? Yeah.
Butcher's infected the ball and Fremantle's picked it up. Look, they should have been up by a lot more Fremantle. They really sort of did come out in the blocks, looked like the better team. They probably looked like the better team all game, but really in the third, they were looking good. Just couldn't kick straight, couldn't capitalise on the scoreboard. Finally, though, Fife, spelt with THO, just a bit of slang there on my script. Found the big Pav inside the forward 50 to go in the final break. 3 points down. Final quarter. Fremantle got some run and momentum early in the fourth, but Justin Westhoff with another desperation tackle bumped Ibbotson directly in front of goal and saved the 6 points. What we love to see here at 6 points. This was the good quarter. It only took like an hour and a half to get to this point, but with 3 quarters of not much happening, something finally was going on. And it was Fremantle that was opening up Port Adelaide in the way that Port Adelaide did to opponents last year. It was a real role reversal there. It was hard out there for all the players. 30-degree day. Everyone was just a bit spent. Big mistake from Pittard, and this is what probably cost them the game, other than Johnny Butcher, in the defensive 50, which Ken Hinckley will be absolutely fuming about after he listens to the podcast, of course. Caught holding the ball when he should have been easily cleared, and it looked like it was the end for Port from there. Then Ballers just had to do what he does best and rub in another goal. Boak, from the boundary, casually booted a ripper to fit for the last goal of the game to get them within 7 points. But time was Port's enemy, going down to the newly named Domain Stadium, to which I had no idea about until the pre-show, by 7 points. Final score from Domain, Fremantle 11-9-75 to Port Adelaide 10-8-68. Some goals for you. Rob Pav finished with 4, Pearce with 2, Ballantyne with 2, Fife, Walters and Neil all with 1, Wines with 2. I don't see Butcher on here. Butcher got 1, and that's it for Port Adelaide. Ebert, Wingard, White, Need, Schultz, Butcher, Wingard with all 1. Good spread, only Wines with the 2. Best on ground for me, probably Daniel Pearce. You'd love playing your old club if you were kind of on top, wouldn't you? You'd just be unleashing. Fife, obviously, continuing where he left off. Pav, really good job by the Pav for Port Adelaide. Ebert played really, really well. He was one of the ones. Ollie Wines, obviously your man in the midfield. Polek, I thought, played
He had a surprisingly good game, actually. I think he racked up a lot of Dream Team points as well, Polak. So.
Yeah. Injuries. Chris Main did his ankle. Don't know the scans back on that one yet. We'll keep you posted. Lobe. Oh, goodness.
Before you get into this, John Butcher came into the team because Lobe was injured.
Just an all-round bad day for me.
So, if you're listening, John Butcher, Shaan's not angry at you. He's angry at Lobe because Lobe destroyed his dream team along with Virgin not giving him signal on the way down to Bunbury on the weekend. That is why. So let's just back it up on John Butcher, all right? Finish your report, Shaan.
Okay. On the back of this performance, what are we thinking of both teams? Obviously, Port Adelaide's been the big one, like the big talked about team to get in the grand final. Let's talk about Freo first. Are they still top 4 material, Rob?
I think me and you both had them as 5th this season in the show that we did last week. I don't really think that this performance puts them, in my mind, at least in the top 4. I'm still not 100% convinced. For me, Fremantle had one quarter where they were better than Port Adelaide. It just happened to be the final quarter. And as for Port Adelaide, I think, honestly, obviously they would have liked the win, but they far from disgraced themselves in this game. They were terrific. I know you said it was a little bit boring, and like you said, when two top teams that have really good defense come together, that's usually what happens. But they were fantastic. I thought Port, aesthetically, as a spectator to look at, were great. They were hard at the ball. They were committed. The younger players, so Wines especially, players that just dominated last year, can they take the next step? Yep, absolutely they can. They absolutely dominated. So, look, I think the Power will still probably finish ahead of Fremantle this year,
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about the crowd. 35,000. When you've come off Adelaide Oval, who had 46, to a team that didn't do too well last year, then you look at Port Adelaide, who could have gone to the grand final, Fremantle, who just got knocked out of the finals. You'd think that two great teams, there'd be a big crowd. 35,000 they had. The capacity there's 43. I thought there would have been more. Is there anything to look into that?
I thought there would have been more as well, especially the Starlight Purple Haze game. You would have thought the Fremantle supporters would have gotten out there and been around that first game of the season. Maybe it takes people a bit of time to sort of come back to the game and get into that routine.
I guess the big question is, was it your villain that
was it the fire that
swept people away?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't hear about that until after the game, but having said that, I wasn't actively involved. Obviously, I was doing other things before this game started. But, I mean, it's a little bit upsetting. I mean, Perth's building a new stadium. Was it 65,000 capacity? Massive. And we're getting 35,000 for a replay of, two of the top 4 teams from last year. So
and I went to the final. I know it's a final last year, but I went to the final. There was a sellout. It was a great crowd. And it's the same teams. Although it's round 1 and it's a final, I know it's different, but still, there should have been a big crowd down there.
And you'd think, especially with Port having taken the chocolates last year, that Freo would have wanted to get down there and really sink it into them. And the players did that. And look, 35,000, don't get me wrong, they were loud, they were passionate. But to think that there was 8,500 seats there that just weren't used is quite remarkable for two teams of such skill.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Rob. Let's move on.
Let's do
my favourite segment.
Let's do your favourite
because
segment.
I've got a bit of stuff to talk about here.
It's time for Dream Team. That's right, Shaan. Get excited.
Yes.
Now, as you said, you have a few bones to pick for Dream Team this round. We're actually running a little bit ahead of our script. So
I've got time.
So you can take your time. You can have a bit of a rant over Lobie. You can crucify John Butcher a little bit more if you need to. But your team, take us through what happened. Who scored well? Who lost you a potential matchup? Who didn't play well? What changes are you looking at making coming into the week?
Okay, well, I'll just explain what happened. So, Thursday night, just before the game started, I accidentally had Camden McIntosh as an emergency. Don't know what happened. It was just an oversight. So I thought, well, thank goodness I've got my phone. I'll just log on, quickly switch that around. I'll get someone else in there. Couldn't log on, Rob. I was locked out of the system, and it was just absolutely. I couldn't.
So were you locked out, or did your
no, it was
phone
my service.
provider?
I wasn't locked out. The main page loaded up, and I could log in. The login button just didn't go to the next page. All I wanted to do was just de-click the E button. That's all I needed to do. Disallowed.
So we'll blame Virgin Australia for 101 points missing from your dream team.
You owe me
right?
101 points. I finished up 1703. Should have been 1803. 1804 in my books.
Good maths.
Yeah, Camden McIntosh, great play. The big ones for me, obviously, Tex Walker had 54 at quarter time.
That's
which
amazing,
is amazing,
yeah. On track for 216, I think, just top of my head, that's better than your maths.
Well, we'll think about Gary Abler, who got 60, what do you get?
61 on a game.
61. And Tex got 54 and a quarter.
And I don't know how Gary scored that low. I mean, he had, I think he had 19 or 20 touches and 2 goals, and you'd think, he would have done more, but that's all right. Gary Ablett never again is going to be my captain for Dream Team. I've already moved that one over to Ollie Wines for the coming week. But Camden McIntosh, obviously you missed out on those points. Who else played well for you that you didn't expect or that you had in the wrong position? Or
Newton from Melbourne, really, really good effort.
Former Port Adelaide player?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a... I mean, I know they didn't really have a spot in the club, but Port Adelaide's going to be thinking when you got players like John Butcher in your team and you let Newton go, goodness me.
You need to lay off Butcher, man. And to think, this is coming from a man who has the crush on every single Port Adelaide player known to man, and you are just ripping into Butcher.
He had a really good effort. He finished with 96, and he was an emergency on my bench first of all, and then I just chucked him in. I thought, we'll throw him in. Yeah. We'll see how we go. Give him a chance.
With DeGoey from Collingwood, and he racked up 13. So probably best not to just randomly chuck people into your dream team squad there, Shaan. I figured that one out pretty quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Who else did really well in my team? Obviously, Mitch Clark. He was a cheapie. He played okay.
He got 86. He kicked those first 2 quarter goals, and the ball didn't really get down to Geelong's forward end much after that point in the game. So
definitely, yeah. Talking about forward lines, Lance Franklin flat. Obviously, it was a away game. City didn't kick much goals. I expected more from the big buddy. I expected more points.
You had Buddy in your team, did you?
Yeah, I did. He's in the forward line.
What a joke! How did you? Now, the big question I have for you is obviously you had Matthew Cruiser in your ruck a couple of weeks ago. Your ruck division was looking pretty shoddy. How did your ruck division hold up this week?
By getting rid of Cruiser, and I had a couple of spots to fill as well. Getting rid of Cruiser, I don't know what happened to Dream Team, but suddenly I went from having 100,000 left over to minus 200 or something, and then I wasn't allowed to submit my team, and then I couldn't change it. I couldn't trade anyone out. It was just a disaster.
Blame technology, Shaan. That's it. Blame the technology.
And this is on my computer, so this wasn't even on my phone. What I had to do was, because I couldn't afford any other ruckman, so I had Sauce Jacobs as my main one, and then I had Matty Lobie second. I had Leuenberg on the bench, and then I had a man named O'Brien from the Crows, who was 120,000 ruckman.
Yeah, so the cheapest ruckman.
The cheapest ruckman I could find, exactly. And I just had him as my emergency because everyone was green in my ruck division. Then, with the withdrawal of Lobie, and then I lost Well, I reckon about 100. I'll put it down.
Oh, Lobie doesn't get you 100. Turn it up. Turn it
80.
up.
80.
Patrick Ryder got me 80 for Port. There's no way that Lobie's a better player than Ryder.
He's not a better player, but he's the main ruckman. Like Ryder should have been in the half forward line, and then Lobie just tapping him left, front, centre. Sauce Jacobs only got 88. I expect more from him. He's usually around the 95 to 100 sort of range. He was a little bit flat. Danish Swan, the big Swan man, got 105. Pretty standard for Swanee.
That's pretty stellar, actually, considering he's coming back from a pretty average year. So you'd think that. How much did you pay for him?
I paid $5.35.
That's not too bad. $105, $5.30. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
Anyone else that let you down, disappointed you,
let me
impressed
down. What was his name from Collingwood? He only got 25. Adam Oxley. Adam Oxley. I know he's only a rookie.
Why'd you put him in your
team?
No,
he's a rookie, and he was looking good. NAB Cup played really good.
Is he the dirt cheap, like that 150 mark?
Dirt cheap defender, yeah.
Okay, well, you know what? He scored, so you can't complain.
Yeah, he scored, 25. A
rookie.
little bit flat. Alipati Carlisle as well. He went off. For the Freo game, I know that it was 30 degrees, and I know that Port Adelaide's a bit colder in Adelaide, and yes, you can sort of make all the excuses that you want. He was a bit flat. He was cramping up midway through the third.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, so a bit flat from here. He got subbed off, and he only got a 34. Was expecting a bit more from him. Sard from Gold Coast, really good game for the first year, 62. All of the Essendon players, all of my Essendon players were pretty flat. I know whether you could say they were all a little bit flat. Overall, pretty good. 17.03. Should have been 18.04.
Now, you got two possible trades you can make this week. Really quickly, who are you looking at trading? Any names that sort of run through your head at the moment?
Well, I know I can't touch Patrick Ryder. I can't switch him with Lobie because I'll just get annihilated on next week's show.
Yeah, well, you will get teased. Yes, that's correct.
I'm thinking, I think I need to get rid of Lobie. I think I need to get another ruckman in, because if that's going to be a regular thing of him not playing, now that Port's got those two ruckmen, they could be kind of sort of switching them around. Someone a little bit more reliable. Ablett should probably go as captain.
Yeah, I've changed my captain. Obviously, Ablett was, now it's Ollie Wines. Ablett, I think he's too good to have two average sort of games like that.
Do I go Tex is the question.
Oh.
In the context of the show,
that's your call, I think, Shaan. But look, my team had a pretty good game. I've made 2 changes already. I've done some remixing. As you remember, Patrick Ryder was in my forward line. He's now been moved into my ruck division. He's switched with David Hale, who's actually dual position forward ruck. Hale's gone to the bench in my forward line. 365,000 sitting on the bench. Whenever he's ready, he can come back in. Tom Boyd have moved to the bench. Mitch Clark, Jesse Hogan have come on, so that's 150 added to my forward line. Traded in for Mitch Honeychurch, under 200,000, 69 this round. He'll continue to get a game, I think, for the Bulldogs. As of right now, I have about 500,000 that I could consolidate from my bench. In the next 3 weeks, I'll be looking to do that, and I'll be looking to add someone of a Brendan Goddard, Nick Del Santo model.
Oh, wow.
Into
so
my midfield.
You got the plan happening.
I'm not going to lie, Shaan. I did a bit of calculation. If the team I had this round got exactly the same scores as I would have had 1,936. And that's with Lumumba underperforming, Gary Ablett, missing half of what he usually gets. Nick Natanui, the man that you gave me untold amounts of crap for last week, picked up 90.
All right.
So that's not too bad. He went
Fair.
up. I think he went up in
Fair,
value.
Nick.
So
just watch him next week.
We'll see how he goes against Carlton, but Carlton looks like the walking wounded at the moment, so I'm going to back him in to have a big one.
And the big one for everyone, I mean, you really either had Gazza or Rockcliffe as your captain, and
Rockcliffe
what happened
obviously
there?
went down,
went down hard.
Look, 750,000, I think, just
ridiculous
down the toilet there, isn't it, for Rockcliffe?
Oh, terrible.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to this week, Shaan. I'm really looking forward to getting the games done. And listeners, if you do want to get involved, JKEXP9J5 is the code for that one. We have had a new arrival to the Dream Team League, Shaan.
We have.
Her name's Cara. Her team name is the Caramello Koalas.
Okay.
I actually really like that name.
Yeah,
I think that was better than your...
Cara.
Yeah, I think that was better than...
Are you joking?
That was better than your...
the Walking Tex.
Yeah, the Walking... Yeah, now you've changed. It was better than the Centre-Back Bandits, though. That was nothing short of atrocious, Shaan. Right, prediction time, Shaan. Get excited. Last week we didn't have time to go through the games, but this week we have, because I planned properly. We've got a script.
We've sat down before.
And we've done a little bit of prep for the show. So, let's take us through this one. Teams aren't announced. It's a Tuesday. They don't get announced for another 2 days. That's never stopped us. Don't worry about it, Shaan. West Coast Eagles versus Carlton Domain Stadium. Who's your pick?
At Domain, you'd have to pick West Coast over this one. West Coast will be looking to bounce back. Carlton, I think, is going to win a game all year.
Yeah, and also, I think this is a really interesting game because West Coast deficiency at the moment is definitely their back line, and Carlton's deficiency is their forward line. So it'll be a really good game. If the Eagles can get off to a fast start, I don't think Carlton will be able to come back. They've just got no firepower, as we mentioned. Eddie Betts gone, Jared Waite gone. There's nothing left in that forward line, especially with Daisy, who's that sort of pinch hitting midfield forward. Yeah, I don't like the look of Carlton heading into this one, so the Eagles are my pick for Friday night. Now, Richmond versus the Western Bulldogs at the MCG on Saturday.
Look, I don't think Bulldogs can do what they did last week. I think, Richmond for this one. Richmond too strong.
Yeah, I'm going to back in Richmond as well. My heart says no, my head says yes. The Bulldogs played a very high-pressure game at Etihad Stadium. Etihad Stadium, one of the smaller ovals. MCG, bigger, wider wings. Richmond obviously played there last week. The Bulldogs just historically don't play well at the MCG. It frustrated me to no end that we had home preliminary finals in those years, and we played them at the MCG for crowd purposes, and it was a huge disadvantage. So for that reason, I'm going to pick the Tigers to take this one home.
Definitely. Giants v Demons. This will be a good game, I reckon.
This will be interesting. I think
Skoda Stadium.
I think the Demons are definitely up and coming. They surprised me. I mean, I don't think anyone would have tipped them to beat Gold Coast. I'll back in the Giants this week.
Back in the Giants, yeah. With Bernie Vince coming back and Chris Dawes also coming back, hopefully, allegedly. I think Demons, I'm going to pick an upset here. I reckon the Demons will get up over at Skoda. Exactly. Collingwood versus the Crows down at Etihad. Now, I'd obviously love to say the Crows, but historically in Melbourne against Collingwood, Crows' record has been quite flat. So for that reason and that reason alone, I'm going to tip Collingwood in for this one.
Yeah, Collingwood surprised me going up to Brisbane and taking home the 4 points from the Lions. But having said that, they were under a lot of pressure. They obviously came out with a lot to prove, given the scandal that's hanging over their head at the moment. I'm actually going to back in the Crows. At Etihad, I can see Tex just dominant, just running the entire ground. I can see danger as well. Collingwood, I don't know. I think that game was a statement game. They came out, they had to make some noise, they had to prove something, and they did it, and now I think they'll go back to Melbourne. Don't forget, this is the first time they would have travelled in 16 years or something. So they'll be tired from the travel. I'm going to pick the Crows in this time. True.
That's a very good point, Rob. Gold Coast versus St Kilda up at Metricon. Saints, very flat. Gold Coast, a little bit flat as well. But I reckon Gold Coast can get the job done. They'll be looking to bounce back after that one.
I think Rodney Ed will definitely give them a bit of a spray during the week and let them know what's on and what's not and the standards that you need to play at this level. Gary Ablett with a week under his belt as well, you'd think would come out a bit better as well. So I'm going to pick Gold Coast for that one.
Definitely. Adelaide Oval now. This is a pretty big one. 2 top 4 sides. Port Adelaide versus the Sydney Swans. Now, this is a tough one. I didn't think much of Sydney's on the weekend, although Port lost as well. Yeah, as you mentioned, their efforts around the ground was pretty stellar. So I'm going to tip Port in for this one, Rob.
I'm going to take Port as well. I don't think Sydney will be able to back up
especially
that performance
Adelaide
and come back. Yeah, and also
the Portress back alive.
It is. We'll run through these next 3 pretty quickly. So you've got Geelong Fremantle coming from Geelong in Melbourne. I'm actually going to pick. I'm going to pick Freo. I'm going to back Freo.
I'm going to agree with you there. Fremantle for me also. Essendon versus Hawks at the G.
Should be a good game. I'm going to back the Hawks by about 100.
Yeah, Hawks are going to belt them. North Melbourne versus the Lions. Eddie had interesting one. Are the Lions all they've been talked up to be, Rob?
I think the Lions had moments. I mean, obviously in the second half they fought back quite hard, but
Rockcliffe's gone.
Rockcliffe is gone. That's a huge blow for them. But
Rich played amazing.
Melbourne, yeah, Rich did play amazing. North Melbourne, you'd think they'd come out with something to prove. So I'm going to tip North in this one.
North, right? I'll go the Lions for that one.
Look at that. That, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is the dose of the 6 points for another week. Shaan, anything to say before we go and procrastinate just a little bit longer on our uni work?
Just enjoy this round. If it's anything like round 1, it's got a massive weekend coming up.
Absolutely. Now, don't forget, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. There's a lot of stuff happening there, Shaan. It's a hub of activity, actually, on our Facebook page.
Right to us.
We're on 99 likes at the moment. I'd love to crack 100.
100.
It has just been something that bothers me, that we've been sitting on 99 likes for far too long. So, Don't forget, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, send us an email if you have anything you'd like to contribute to the show, or even if you don't, even if you just want to say hello, we would love to hear from you as well. So on behalf of myself, Robert Beaver, and my co-host, Shaan Subra, thanks for giving us a listen. Go out and enjoy the footy this coming weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Murdoch University is the provider of resources and transmission facilities for the 6 Points podcast. The views expressed on the show are those of the individual and not necessarily those of Murdoch University or Radio Murdoch.